concepts of God that are deliberately sidelined within this. The second thing is there is an assumption made within that this universe should ideally be a place where there is no evil. And there's no foundation for why do you think this universe should be in a utopia for us? There's no, and this is just an assumption given without that basis. So let's do a thought experiment very quickly. Two different thought experiments that are very similar, based upon a possible world where there may be no evil or no good. So, no evil or only good. So let's have a look at a universe where you can't do bad things, you can't do evil things. You want to if you want to have a knife and you want to stab someone, it turns into a butterfly. If you think of an evil thought, pink smoke starts coming out of your ears and the thought turns into a good thought. If you jump off a cliff, you start to float. Nothing evil can happen in this world. It's a purely good world. So the question then is there anything in that universe, this conception that we've had of this world, that we can say is good or that we can say is evil? What do you guys think of that?
Well,
can we do any action in that universe good or evil?
I would say not only can you not say it, it'd be meaningless to even talk about it.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't make any sense.
And why not? You're absolutely right. Why not?
But it's kind of like talking about 4 dimensions within this 3 dimension. It's just a concept which does not exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what happens so let's give the counter example and I'll give the underlying reason why. So say if, for example, there is a universe in which everything that happens is bad and evil. If you try and give someone a kiss, you end up spitting acid at them and they melt. If you think a good thought, it turns into daggers and flies across and kills the person you're thinking about. If you eat some food, it becomes poison. Everything that is bad happens. And in that universe, is there anything that could be called good or could be called bad? No. The underlying difference, the main reason for all of this in both of those worlds is you remove same thing, the free will, the volition. The agency of the individuals is removed. So agency really, in a summarized way, is your ability to choose between right and wrong and choose and do those actions. If you take those actions away, those abilities away, those worlds become amoral. There is no good in them or there is no evil in them, depending on which of those 2 examples you take. So to have a world or a universe in which there is good, you require the contrast. You require evil. To have a world in which you can say something is evil, you need the contrast. You need the good. This is like if you have a chalk and you want to write. If you write on the chalk, if the chalk is white and the board is white, you're not going to see the writing. You need the black board with the white chalk to see the writing. And so, as we would say that a creator is the creator is the maximally perfect being who would create the perfect universe. And we would have to, as Muslims, we would believe this would therefore be that universe. So the combination of good and evil that we see necessarily means that this is the best way for the universe to be. So I hope that was a couple of thought experiments to do that. So what explanation do we get from this? So one explanation is free will requires the good and evil to coexist. We have that. So we're talking about a greater good. That maybe we don't have the faculties to understand fully, because we are limited necessarily in our ability to understand, and our understanding of what's in God's mind is necessarily limited. Just like if I went to my professor and asked a question, I'm going to get to the limit of my understanding with the professor. Despite his explanations, I will not be able to understand what he's saying, and that's my limitation of knowledge, and it doesn't reflect on the professor. The same way, my inability to understand whatever is happening in the world in terms of evil or suffering doesn't necessarily reflect on bad reasoning or anything from the creator. In fact, for me to assume that I know better is an arrogant position to take. And that's probably some of the things that we find people become self-deluding. Intrinsically, they become egotistical and they start to delude themselves about knowing the best thing that God should have done or could have done. So one thing is the free will. The second thing is that, and that explains a lot of the human level interactions. So the other thing that people often bring is, okay, what about animals? Animals suffer. What about all of this? Why doesn't God intervene in those things that don't seem to make a difference? Why don't, when there's an earthquake, just stop the earthquake. When there's a, flood coming, just stop the flood. When there's a fire in the forest, just stop the fire. There's a couple of things wrong with this concept, and I'm just going to, rather than explain, I'm just going to lay them out very briefly, and then I'd like to get some interactions from people. I think that people are asking for this in the chat. So the first thing is that as the universe, God's created the universe with some consistency, uniformity, and we assume this uniformity when we do things like science. So when I'm in my work, and I would be what Sabul would call a methodological naturalist, I take the theories that are prevalent and understood and accepted today, and I apply them indirectly onto people I'm seeing and I'm treating. So that is based upon the idea that the universe is uniform. Now, imagine a world where anytime something bad were going to happen, even to animals somewhere, God was intervening. This flood was going to happen, flood stopped. Earthquake's going to happen, earthquake stopped. Our analysis of the laws of nature would break down because they would not be uniform. They wouldn't follow a pattern that would allow us to analyze them. So we would end up in a almost chaotic world. And that's one thing that comes straight away to mind, that we need that. I think the other thing is that even if we are unable to explain the suffering of animals, etc., we go back to that same point. If God is ultimately knowledgeable and just and wise as well as good, then whichever universe we find ourselves in when we're undergoing this, and this is where the religion aspect comes into it, this test of life, because we don't believe it's a utopia, then this is the best possible way for the world to be. So that's really, in a nutshell, I've tried to, rather than just make it a thing, we've tried to make it interactive to underline the point. So the basic thing is you can't even use the label if you're an atheistic universe of evil. Just don't put the label in. If you're going to put the label in, you have to assume that there's a volition, a mind, an intention behind the universe that you're blaming, because you're putting the blame onto this thing that is responsible for the universe. So you have to admit that when you come with this question, this is what you're bringing with. The second thing is that the problem has lots of explanations: free will, wisdom of this divine being that was beyond us, and the assumption, therefore, within our understanding of what this divine being is that the universe that we find ourselves in is necessarily the best possible universe that we can be in. And we gave the examples of amoral universes or places because of a universe where you can't do bad, or a universe where you can only do good. I hope that's a reasonable summary.
That was fantastic, man.
That was really good.
We didn't even bring religion into it, which is fantastic. Which is what I wanted to do. I don't want anyone trying to start asking about Islam because we've not mentioned it yet. I think for this stream, what we're doing is enough. Let's bring the atheists on. Challenge what we've said so far. See if they accept our premises. See if they accept the principles we've established. I'll be honest with you. After that, I can't see many coming on. To be honest, we've got Reanimator that I think he's something to do with that Gin and Tonic show with Rob. Yeah. And he's been spouting away. None of you are brave enough to come on the Gin and Tonic show. Yeah, we're here. Just click a link. Ta-da! I said to him though, Sabor, I said, to be honest with you, you do know who Sabor is, isn't it? And he goes, yeah, because isn't Rob on your Gin and Tonic show? He said, yeah. I says, does he not have PTSD after his time in the park? He said he must come out in a sweat when he hears Sabor's voice or sees him on a poster. I mean, and he wants you to come on his show. It's amazing. But let me just put this. There's somebody there.
Look, at the end of the day, you can have a dialogue with somebody, but it's very important to sort out foundations first. And what I really liked about what Imran explained about evil is sometimes, and I find even with experience, the art, we can make this mistake of when someone says, "Why do evil things happen in the world?" and they happen to be an atheist, we automatically try and go for there's a wisdom that you may not see, which is good and okay, but I like the foundational approach that Imran is speaking about, where we say, well, firstly, without God, there is no such world. We can have a meaningful dialogue about this. So even if we are talking about evil and good, we're still talking, assuming there's a God. Even if you're an atheist, You have to assume there's a God in order to make sense of those terms. So you're talking on our terms, right? And I think it's a very profound point that is often overlooked.
Tom looks like an atheist. The other two look like Muslims. Right, brother, just so you know, this is just for atheists right now. So if you're Muslim, come out of the back chat. We'll give Muslims a chance to come with their questions they've got that they want to put to Sabura and the Dr. or me afterwards. But let's first give the atheists a chance, because we've been jumping all over their beliefs, and it's only fair to give them a shot.
There's a question, interesting question. It's by Shaunus32 at 9:54. He asked a question. Can you put that one up?
9:52.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. Oh, Shaunus. Oh, yeah, he's a Swedish brother, mashallah. But he's going to go all philosophical on you. I'll tell you that now. He hijacks every one of my Facebook posts, and it becomes a scene.
Oh, really? Okay.
He's a nice guy, beautiful guy. He's so close to Islam, but it's the concept of a creator that he's struggling with. And he doesn't realize that we're not guessing at the concept. We believe we've had revelation about the concept. Do you get me?
Yeah.
Let me just see if I can find him. I'm new to this troll in the chat. And should we chuck Tom on while I'm looking for it?
Who?
Tom Jump. He looks like an atheist.
Yeah, Jump. Oh, yes. We spoke to Tom before. How are you doing, Tom?
Pretty good. How are you guys?